First reading of House Files.
Introduction of first reading of House File number 5, an act relating to capital investment.
First reading. There is a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, Urdahl moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, and that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that House File number 5 be given its second and third readings and be placed upon its final passage.
I recognize the member from Meeker, Representative Urdahl, to explain the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it is my motion, and we want to get to this bill just as quickly as we can.
Any discussion on the Urdahl motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its second reading.
Second reading, House File number 5.
Second reading. I recognize the member from Meeker, Representative Urdahl, to explain the bill.
Okay, is that another one? Oh, that's the reviser's bill? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, there's an amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Urdahl moves to amend House File number 5 as follows, and the amendment is coded A17-0542.
I
recognize the member from Meeker, Representative Urdahl, to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. As with some bonding bills, there are various well, shall we say, corrections that have to be made and some others. Okay. And so in this one, there are technical changes, there are some project changes, there are project additions, project removal, and that puts the bill in the order that I would like it. I urge you to vote yes on the amendment.
Any discussion to the amendment, the A17 amendment? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of adoption of the A17 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion prevails. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 5, as amended.
Third reading. Further discussion on the bill. The member from Meeker, Representative Urdahl.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'd like to reprise my role as closer for legislative sessions. But I know that as a former 7th grade history teacher, it was never wise to stand in the way of 7th graders and lunch. I'm going to try not to spend much time standing between you and adjournment and bed. But just a few words. I'd like to thank nonpartisan staff Andy Lee, Deb Dyson, for their help on this bill. Also, my partisan staff, my CA Gavin Hansen, Megan Shea from the Senate, of course Jenny Nash from the DFL, and my LA Jennifer Goblish, and of course Representative Hausman and our entire Capital Investment Committee. We have a pretty darn good bill here. I'd call it great, but I am from Minnesota. And this bill is based on last year's bill. It contains some new projects and some critical projects. It's heavy on infrastructure. I think it addresses many of the important needs of the state of Minnesota. And as I say, I think it's a pretty darn good bill, and I'd appreciate your support.
Discussion on the bill. The member from Ramsey, Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and a special thank you to Representative Urdahl, to Gavin Hansen and Jenny Nash. We, I think, formed a very congenial working partnership as we put this together. And we improved this bill at every stage, at the 600 level in capital investment, 800 in ways and means, and now the 988. One area particularly along the way that I was a little nervous about. We were, higher education is usually a third of the bill, and we were at about 11%, but now we have doubled that to 20%. So that part of the bill has improved. I have a particular affection for the part of the bill that provides $77 million for housing for those who don't have a safe place to sleep at night. And we will feel that impact all over the state. So it is a very good bill, and there is so much added at each stage that we can celebrate. For all members, I want to have a couple of words of caution, because I think we all bear a responsibility. It's a hard bill to put together, and there is such stress on it, so many needs all over the state. Higher education was usually a third of the bill, but this time transportation is a third of the bill, as it was last year. And I think as we depend more on this bill, because we haven't really resolved the issue, the bigger issues in the transportation bill, and rely more heavily on transportation, that does crowd out other needs, and we all feel that. I want to speak specifically about road earmarks, some of which are still in the bill. And here's what happens when someone writes that in. They go to the head of the line against your road project. So if it happens that one particular one gets written in, yours might go down the line. Virtually 100% of transportation finance chairs in the past decades, from Langseth and Leader to Beard, Holberg, and Kelly, in other words, bipartisan, Democrat and Republican, they wrote us a letter cautioning us against this potential politicizing of road building. And so I'd like us all to remember that next year as we move ahead with this work. And one other, we assume we can talk about regional significance of everything in the bill. And it is true that in a couple of areas, we do some very local things, such as wastewater infrastructure. But we usually do them within the context of a program that's established, where someone looks at all of these projects and assures that everybody is treated the same, that there's equality in terms of how everyone in the state is treated. It gets harder when we write into a bill something that is local, and there are hundreds of them. And I would just cite, if a county jail or a community center or a high school or a community sports field, if those kinds of issues are written in this bill, next year you have the potential of hundreds of them. And so those are, I think, two cautionary notes. We all, I think, bear a responsibility as we deal with our local communities, what requests we bring. And I think that's something, this is one of those bills where we all work together that we can all help with. But for tonight, we come together to pass a good bill. And members, I encourage a green vote.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair Urdahl, you are a man of your word, and I very much appreciate that. Again, the security hospital has been a priority, and I appreciate the fact that you managed to get it in there. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill? The member from Meeker, Representative Urdahl.
Thank you. It's a great bill. Whoops. Vote green.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. Fenton votes aye. There being 119 ayes and 11 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to.